So this will be posted on the website after as well on YouTube. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, guys, and joining the weekly drills. I really appreciate it. As always, the submissions are really great, and for each weekly drill that we've done, I constantly see the quality getting more and more better and just a lot more refined and improved, which is really, really awesome. Like, it's really, really great to see everyone giving it their best and using this as an opportunity to better yourself as an artist and just get that in real-time industry feedback, which is so important. It really, really is so important to your development as an artist as well. So the weekly drill that we had last week is the MarshallAmplifier. Being a guitar player myself and a huge fan of amps, I was really excited to kick off this drill, and I thought it would be a really good opportunity for you guys to kind of just take an existing reference and sort of digest it and not having to worry about kind of come up with an idea, and just to be able to really focus on your skill set and ability and kind of just essentially treating it as if you were briefed in a studio, and that brief was to create an amplifier as a prop for a game. So we just provided some reference imagery of just different Marshall amps like the JSAM 800, the JTM. I think this is JVM here. Yeah, again, big fan. Okay, awesome. So first one we got is from Elafory. Thank you so much for your submission. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you taking the time and effort to sit and create this and assemble it. It was really awesome to see all this come together, and I really appreciate that you also rendered this in Unreal, which is really, really important as well. We definitely want to get you guys more heavily involved inside of Unreal and doing your kind of render and presentations there. It really gets you to work through kind of the pipeline from creating the assets to importing them to set dressing to rendering them and just lighting and presentation. It's very, very important. I always say that your best work is always, it always looks the best when it's rendered and presented the best. Like, you could create a really awesome asset, but if it's not lit and rendered correctly, it's not going to shine to the best of its ability. So overall, I think this is a really, really nice approach. I really like the Gibson Les Paul. I actually had a Gibson Les Paul standard. I like that you did the JMP head. I think that was awesome. And the vintage cab. And just did a render shot as well in the engine, kind of representing the scene and kind of the layout and construction. And just from it to final to the kind of non-shaded lighting viewport overlay as well, which is really, really cool. So overall, really, really nice work. As feedback, I would say that when it comes to the general wear of it, I probably would have I wouldn't have it so visible. I'd probably reduce it by 50% in terms of the opacity of it, and maybe tile it a little more as well, because they just feel very large, just kind of wear details around the front panel. And a lot of dirt around just the kind of brass areas. I probably would have reduced that, or kind of, thinking that part would have metalness values to it, I would have used the roughness map instead to kind of just give some of that aging to the brass instead of it being, kind of just looking like dirt. I think that would have been awesome. I like that you went through the process, and I can see that you did treat this from a high poly to low. But I think what would have been really cool is just kind of see a wireframe as well, to kind of see the presentation in terms of, use a wireframe here, but also your UV layout and kind of your textures and just kind of how you went through the process. Oh, sorry, excuse me, you have some here. Okay, awesome. So yeah, this is really great. You can see how you laid it all out, and you can see that the front panel, you have all that detail, and it's really nicely packed together as well. Yeah, this is awesome. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement and opportunity in terms of, I suppose the thing is, it's very hard for me to look at this and read in terms of if you created one knob and duplicated it around, or if you unwrapped each one individually. But you can always get away with doing little details like that to get away with kind of just increase the overall resolution of your UV set as well. I think your your kind of like your UV layout, and you can see what the textile density is correct because everything looks unified. So I say we could definitely push the textures just a little bit more. Like I love that you got all of the, just kind of like the detail, the micro detail, like the fabric and kind of the leathery cloth that's on the amplifier itself. But I'd say overall it would have been really, just another nice little texture pass would really make it pop more as well. But it's good to see that you've definitely worked through the process of taking it from a high poly to low poly, to UVs, to bakes, to textures. It would have been really cool to see some shots of your high poly mesh as well. I think that would have been a really, really nice touch. And then if you like creating the Gibson Les Paul as well, like seeing kind of the process of that and kind of how you went through that as well. Yeah, I think overall it's a really, really, really awesome submission. I just think it would be really cool to see more of kind of the higher level details in terms of like just your thought process and kind of how you approached each stage and kind of just like render shots of it. But honestly, overall, this looks incredible. Like, thank you so much for this submission, and I really, really am excited to see what's ahead. And I think you're going to continue to improve and go from strength to strength, which is really awesome.
Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, next one we got from Danny. We got the smaller amp, the MG10, which is like the starter amp. This looks awesome. I love that you've added all like the little bolts and screws, kind of the front turny boys, like the knobs and the power button and the input, and just the Marshall logo as well. I think you guys have done an incredible job creating that Marshall logo, because it's definitely not the easiest logo to create, with a lot of the curvature and everything. So all of you guys have done exceptional with that. Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. I think the one thing I would have loved to see with this is just, again, more of a general breakdown and approach, and kind of how you approached your bakes and textures and your UV layout and kind of your low poly and high poly. And, I think it's really, really, really important to go through that process, because it shows me kind of how you approach it, where you are in terms of your skill set and how far you've come. It really, and like that's ultimately what also really helps me score these weekly drills, because it just, again, it's about celebrating your success and celebrating the progress that you've made, which is really, really, really important. And I think it would be awesome, like going forward, if we present this stuff in Unreal, so you guys get to go through the process of creating an asset and bringing it into Unreal Engine and then rendering it in real time, which is really, really, really awesome. So next we got the Marshall amp from MCS80. Again, a really, really, really awesome submission. You're doing an incredible job with this. I love the overall just layout and design, and kind of how you've approached the the tubes and all the details inside and outside the amplifier. You got the JTM 45, and I think overall from all these submissions you can see that you guys have really enjoyed the process of creating these, which is really, really, really important. I think when you create an asset, it's like you have to really enjoy doing it, because that's when you do your best work. So I think this is really, really cool. The only thing I would say about this is I would probably really pull back on the kind of the density on the level of noise on the cloth that covers the amplifier. It's just reading very heavy. I'd probably tile it more, so it's not as, like, the elements aren't as large on it, because it just overall reads slightly incorrect in that regard and quite noisy. With the brass part, I would probably avoid kind of going for like the dirt, and again just use the roughness map to really kind of add that level of detail around there, because when you think about it, brass ages over time. It like there'd be a lot of discoloration, and it would have subtle roughness values, for like general staining and just kind of just aging of the material itself. And a lot of that really adds a lot of storytelling to the asset as well, in terms of like, how old it is and how long that person's had it. And, and when you look at like a lot of old vintage amplifiers, they generally have a lot of those details, which, it's like amplifiers age like wine, they get a lot better and they just look a lot nicer when they're aged. So I think I would definitely go for that and just do another pass and kind of just revisit the texture process and just retexture it and kind of just try and push it a little bit further. But overall, really awesome job and really awesome progress. Again, I would like to see just a little bit more breakdowns in terms of your approach. Maybe if you did a high poly, maybe it was just modeled and unwrapped, and even like seeing how you done your UV layout. Like that's really important. But overall, congratulations, that's awesome. And next we have Marshall from Scum Destroy. This is really awesome submission as well. I definitely think I would have liked to see more kind of like render shots and breakdowns of the asset itself and what your approach was in the creation process. You know, I definitely would be very careful with just like your UV layout here as well, because there's some visible stretching along the sides, and just kind of, you know, give it another pass, and you know, and decrease the amount of like thickness between the kind of outer section and the inner section of the amplifier. It just feels very thick. And yeah, just keep going. Like you're definitely on the right track, and it's awesome to see you making progress and, you know, going through the process of modeling something and unwrapping it and getting it set up for renders. Like really awesome work. But I definitely think this here definitely has to be my favorite one from Tom Romer. And I think what's really cool about this is, like, you know, you effectively went through that process where you took it to like high poly, low poly textures, UVs, and it's just textured and rendered really nice. You know, like you use Substance Spinner for your texture process, and you can see that you've baked down a lot of your details and effectively have took it from high poly to low poly. You know, you can see with all the screws and the little bevels and grooves, and it just looks awesome. You know, the only feedback I would say for this is very much, I probably would have tiled the outer fabric just a little bit more so it's not as large. You know, I know in some like Marshall heads like the JSM 2000 and the 800 and stuff, sometimes it can be like this, but just personal preference. I love that you've added the Jim Marshall logo, and I probably would have just done a little bit more treatment on the brass part, you know, kind of just add a bit more personality and wear and tear and roughness to it. Even between like where the knobs meet the surface of the amplifier, you know, I always say it's really important that when you're doing that stuff to try and you know, kind of introduce a lot of just personality to it. And also, if you have parts that intersect to like these knobs against the surface, it's always good to add some dirt behind the knob, so it kind of feels like it's like you're kind of marrying it more, like you're kind of, it doesn't feel like it's just sorry, it just doesn't feel like it's floating on top per se. You know, it kind of makes it feel like it's more connected. And when I create assets, that's what I do a lot as well. Like any components that intersect, I try to add a bit of detail to kind of make them feel more welded and connected. And that can just be dirt around it, it can be dust around it, you know, sometimes it can be actual just welds themselves as well. You know, and again, really nice treatment around the buttons as well, and you can see that subtle like roughness wear on the actual standby button. The power button typically on this amplifier would be red even when it's off. You know, it wouldn't be like this kind of grey, so I definitely would address that. And again, the logo is really well, and like the top part as well. I probably would have added more details to the top part because it just feels kind of flat right now. So I would have, like, you know, went through the high poly process with it a bit more, and you know, we can see some subtle little faceting. I would have rounded it out more as well. But I think something I really would have loved to see with this Tom is definitely like, actually, you know what? I take that back. You have them here. That's awesome. Okay, so let's look at the wireframe. Yeah, that's so cool. And you know, the funny thing about this as well is there's a lot of elements in this amplifier that you can mirror. You know, when you think about the top part, like you have this edge loop in the center, so you could unwrap basically the left side of it and like flip it over to the right. You know, and you can see with the handle, I definitely would have rounded it out a bit more as well, because there is that subtle faceting. And again, overall, it looks really good. It's very optimized, which is really nice. And I like that you added like this plastic kind of around top and sides, you know, that's visible on the amplifiers that you get. You know, and you can see in the back here as well that like your top section is basically like it's all baked details, which is really good. Like it's really good that you went through that process, and just added a lot of these details on the bottom. You know, and this being the high poly mesh as well. You know, you can see that you've kind of rounded it out more in the high poly on the top. So I definitely would always, you know, for me when I'm always creating a high poly, I always try to make sure the silhouette is one-to-one with the low poly mesh. You know, just so we don't get any of that faceting. And again, really awesome details on the back. I actually want to see, oh, that's awesome. So you actually modeled in like where the power connection goes in and stuff. yeah, that's really really cool. Like I think the high poly looks really really nice. Um, Let me see top part. I would love to see. Do you have a shot of the top part like that? Um, let's see. Bop, 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 bop. Not so much. I would love to see what your thought process was at the top and see if you like baked it down as a high, like just as normal detail, or if you use like an alpha, just to have that grading. But overall, really really good. Like your UV layout is really really nice. It's nicely packed. It's optimized. I definitely think it would have been nice to see a higher resolution shot. Your details of your norm map. There's no visible gradient errors or anything. So overall, this mesh is perfect. Like it's really, really, really good. I definitely would just give it another treatment in terms of textures, but I definitely have to say overall, like this is definitely the winner for me because of just like the process that you went through and the quality that you outputted. When I compare it to like the last asset you did, Tom, again, this is like exceptionally a lot higher quality. So it seems that every time you do a weekly drill, you just dramatically improve, which is awesome. And that is basically the goal of it, is to like get you guys to the best of your ability. And like if you focus every week on an asset, you just get better and better. Like it really really helps to train you, and I'm really happy to see that you've went through this process, Tom. And to be honest, as I said to you guys, it's quality over quantity. So like if you give this an extra texture pass and just give it a bit more love, that's basically a portfolio ready prop that you have. And then going through that process with a few more, you basically be in a position then to start applying for jobs, which would be awesome. So yeah, congratulations, Tom. It definitely is the winner to me, and thank you so much. I'm trying to access the chat here, and I can't seem to see it. Let me see if I can. Oh, here we go. I got it. There we go. Yeah, so you actually mirrored a lot of the pots, like the main body is mirrored. Yeah, and that really, really helps you increase your texture fidelity as well, because you're not taking up as much UV space. And you can basically see that. Like you did the front and the back parts, which is really important. You got the underneath section, but I'm assuming other areas, like it's not super readable here, but you can see that you basically have optimized your UVs as much as possible, which is great. And that goes for anything. Like even these like little back, like these little parts in the back, you always only need to create one and then just duplicate it over. Unless it's like for a specific reason, like the top strap, like the latch that it connects to. And you can probably mirror the strap itself. You don't need to give the strap a full UV space as well. It's always just about being as optimal as possible, to get the most out of your text resolution. But yeah, honestly, this kicks ass. Like, congratulations. So that effectively concludes our weekly drill. The next weekly drill we have is a smartwatch. And I think the most important thing for this is to get you guys working through different kind of objects, to get you more comfortable with objects that you might have not been comfortable with first. Because as an artist, it's really important to be able to be flexible and to kind of create content in a way that allows you to, everyone has their niche and what they're comfortable with, but it's good to be able to push yourself and just kind of test the waters and see if you can go from like a Marshall amplifier head to something a bit more organic, like a watch in some ways, and then even the candy weekly drill we had. So again, there's not much room for imagination in this. It's just very much taking a watch, using it as a reference and going for it. And I think the strength of this is very much it allows you to be able to kind of treat it like it's a brief at a studio and treat it like you have to create a brooch for a game, and allows you to just focus on creating it and not having to worry about reference gathering and creating a scene and so forth. And it allows you as an artist to work through that process and to get as like better and better and better, and like effectively like with what Tom did here, just I would really like to see more of this in terms of like the high poly, the textures, the wireframe. I think the extra nice addition I would like to see is like your UV layout. So like a screenshot of just the UVs and like maybe UVs on your mesh, so it just helps me understand. Because again, all that stuff helps me judge in terms of the weekly drill itself. It's really great that everyone takes a stab at it and gives it their best, but effectively the end result and the goal of pushing everyone at the rookies is to accomplish being able to create an asset that can go into a video game and be basically performance, but also to a quality level that is expected. So again, a huge congratulations, and I'm really, really excited to see how you guys do with the smartwatch. Friday, November 10th is the deadline at 7 p.m. Yeah, I hope you guys have fun with this one. So I guess alongside that, as always, we always do a Q&A as well, and I think it's really important because it allows me to support you guys in real time and just answer any questions and so forth that do come up. So I guess I'll open up the floor to anyone who wants to maybe answer and ask any questions.
As always, I have some questions.
Sure.
When doing something like high poly to low poly, let's say I take something to ZBrush and it's wood, for example, and I add wood details on ZBrush. How much should I add from ZBrush and how much should I add from Substance Painter? Or if I went like to something like ZBrush, can I add all the height in there and only add like colors and roughness in Substance Painter? Or like I shouldn't add much details in the regarding the material or the texture in the high poly?
So for me, I always think when you're creating wood, it's very important to try to do it in a manner that's non-destructive. And when I say that, I usually mean, when you're sculpting wood, like for example, we see here, it's important that when you're doing the high poly, you just treat it as like you're looking to try and get the forms and shapes in and like the subtle details. But like super heavy wood grain and all this kind of stuff here, I would probably always avoid that, and I would try to do this in the texture, because it just means as an artist, if you have to go back or change something or you need to create another variant, it's really hard to try and clean this stuff up versus this one on the right here, where it's more like, there's a lot of surface detail, but it's purposeful. It's not just like micro level, like tertiary, like these small grains and scratches and so effectively when you're creating wood, I would just say, sculpt the edges, make it look like a wooden plank, and just do a little bit of surface detail on it, and then generate all the rest of the micro level stuff like this one in Substance. It just allows you to be able to change things and work a lot easier with it. And it also just means that if you're working on a project and you create like 3 wooden plank variants and you have it like this section here where it's all this noise, and you bake your normals, and then art director's like, hey, can we get a variant that doesn't have that? Then you've kind of hit a snag, because you're like, oh crap, I'm going to have to go in and try and clean up the high poly to get those details out. But if you add it in the textures, you can just delete that layer and boom, it's ready to go. So I would definitely always say that's personally how I would approach it.
Thank you. That was informative.
Yeah, no problem, Ali. Do you guys have any other questions or anything else regarding engine, industry, art? Do you have any connections in the German games industry or know of anyone looking to hire juniors? That's a really good question, Tom. Let me see. I think I know a few people. I don't know where they are though. It's been a while since I spoke to them, but I used to know the art director at Deep Silver Fish Labs, and a few others. To be honest with you, I'm not sure where they are, but there is definitely the studios looking for talent in terms of like, you have Crytek, and then there's probably a lot of smaller indie companies that were looking for juniors. You also have the outsourced studio, Airship or Air something. They do a lot of art for more stylized games and stuff, and they're usually always looking for people. I would say your best bet would be, if you have a LinkedIn, just start adding people at studios in Germany, and just start posting your work on your LinkedIn and just say you're looking for work, or looking to join a company as a junior or an intern, if it pays, of course. And yeah, that's the best way to get yourself out there and get yourself in front of the right people. Because I always think it's like, for me, I've been very blessed because I would say to people, LinkedIn was my best friend in terms of getting work. Like, it's how I got myself recognized in the industry and known. to have worked in the projects I worked on. You know, it's like I always say, you could be the best artist in the world, but if no one knows who you are, then you're not going to get to work. So I would definitely recommend creating a LinkedIn if you haven't already. Do you guys have any other questions or anything? Yeah, anytime, Tom. Anytime at all. Okay, so oh, we had Andres join. Awesome. Hey Andres, so we're actually doing a Q&A right now. We went through the submission, so I'm going to open the floor to you as well. If you have any questions or anything in regards to industry or art or so forth, you're more than welcome to ask. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be a shorter session. You know, we typically we run a bit longer, but um, you know, I guess unless you guys have anything else, we can probably wrap it up here.
Sounds good. Thank you, James.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. I'm hoping to try and grow this more and more. Again, this is recorded and it'll be posted on the Weekly's Discord channel through YouTube. And yeah, I hope you guys have an awesome day. And as always, if you guys need anything or need any feedback or advice or what have you, you know, my Discord's always open. Please, please, please reach out.